السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So the month of Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan is upon us, and this is a season where the believer should concentrate all of his and her efforts to maximize their benefit and what they take away from Ramadan. And there is much to gain. And we've looked at the ahadith, whether it is in the khutab of Jumu'ah or last week in the Halaqah, the many ahadith that are there to motivate and encourage us and to make us realize the great value of this blessed month. And so what is to gain? The mercy of Allah, the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, paradise, protection from hellfire, a great amount of reward because everything is multiplied. Voluntary deeds you're given the reward of obligations. Obligations are multiplied by at least 70. And it is a month to acquire great qualities that are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala: piety, God consciousness, taqwa, sincerity, ikhlas, and also to gain sabr, patience, and to gain control over one's desires, the lowly desires, the physical and carnal desires, which are often the causes for our sins and the things that distract us from our preparation for akhirah. We begin our session with two main ahadith that we may have heard before. One tells us of the merits of the fast of Ramadan. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the person who fasts one day for the sake of Allah, one day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place between him and hellfire a distance of 70 years as a reward for fasting one day. 70 years distance between a person and hellfire. As for the warning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam states that the person who does not observe one fast of the month of Ramadan, just one out of the 29 or 30 fasts, one fast, he breaks it intentionally without a valid reason, then he would not be able to make up that reward even if he fasted his entire life after that. So imagine somebody in their 20s and they decide not to fast one day. If they spent the next 6 years fasting every day of their life, and that is not possible, then they will not be able to make up the reward. Yes, there is the Shar'i ruling that if you've broken a fast intentionally, then you make up that day and you fast 60 consecutive days, 2 full months, consecutive days, where there is no break. You have to ensure that you start that fast in a time where there's not going to be Eid al-Adha, because if Eid falls, then you are not permitted to fast, it is haram. And if you happen to fall sick, then you have to restart. This is the expiation. This is how grave a sin it is that Allah says fast 2 consecutive months. You know where else Allah says to fast 2 consecutive months? Is when a person kills another believer by mistake, by error. Something happened, an accident, but he caused the death of somebody else. And so there is the freeing of a slave, giving a certain amount of diya, blood money. But if a person, Allah says, فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ, if a person does not have the means in order to pay the blood money, then he has to fast 2 consecutive months. as a means of kafara. And so fasting an entire lifetime will not give you the reward of one day of Ramadan. And this goes to show how important it is to obey the command of Allah and not to worship Allah in accordance to our whims and desires, when we feel like it, how we feel like it, but rather Allah is worshipped the way He commanded. If we do that, then Allah is willing to give a great amount of reward. And if we fail, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not pay attention to our worship that is done with ignorance and in accordance to our desires. So let us look at some of the recommendations or how a fasting person is supposed to protect, alongside giving up, refraining from eating, drinking, and marital relations. What else does a fasting person refrain from or restrain? So number one, he restrains his ears from listening to what Allah has prohibited, such as eavesdropping, gossiping, tale-bearing. Any conversation that is about somebody else, the honor of somebody else, that is degrading somebody else, another believer, you are not permitted to listen to that. Unless it was unintentional and then you removed yourself from that gathering. Then there is no blame on you. In such case, he is to express his disapproval if possible. That even if it is unintentional, you are sitting in a gathering, somebody starts to talk about a Muslim brother or sister in a negative way, and so you are expected to leave and you have to express your disapproval. So restrain of the ears from listening to what Allah displeases Allah. When we say protect our ears, we only think of music. But actually there are things that are greater than music. Is a minor sin, unless a person is, does not intend to repent. To listen to music is a minor sin, in comparison to listen to ghiba and listening to namima, tale-bearing, or eavesdropping, listening to people's secrets. These are major sins, because these break relationships, and Allah does not want for the relationships of the believers to break. Restrain his eyes from looking at what is prohibited and at what occupies the heart and distracts it from the remembrance of Allah. So when you protect your eyes, it is not only a man not looking at a woman not looking at a man. That's all we understand protecting the eyes to be. But actually, even looking at a person with the sight of pride that you are better than them, right? Or signaling with your eyes in order to make fun of a person. This is prohibited. Looking at a person's private matters. This is prohibited. Spying. Looking at a person in order to see their flaws and their faults. This is prohibited. And so all of this has to be refrained from during the month of Ramadan. In addition to that, to restrain the eyes from looking at what occupies the heart and distracts it. These are things that are halal, but may do what? Distract you from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The eyes were created to guide mankind through darkness, assisting him in his needs and in his contemplation and reflection on the wonders of the heavens and the earth. Allah gave you eyes for guidance and to witness the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you can contemplate over the greatness of Allah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Ali, "O Ali, do not follow a glance with a second." Meaning that at times you will look at something that is not permissible for you to look at. Your sight fell on something, so do not follow it up with a second glance. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "For you will be forgiven for the first, not the second." The first was not in your control. The second is. It is with intention. And so protecting our eyes. It was reported that Isa alayhi salam said, "Beware of looking at what is prohibited, for this plants the seed of desire in the heart." Al-Junayd, may Allah have mercy on him, was asked about what helps a person lower his gaze, and he replied, "What helps you lower your gaze from haram?" He replied, "By knowing that Allah's gaze upon you precedes your gaze upon that which you gaze upon. When you are looking, Allah is looking at you. When you're looking at haram, when you're looking at the flaws of your Muslim brother or sister, when you are spying, when you are looking at a non-mahram and the beauty of a non-mahram, then Allah Azza wa Jal is watching you. Restraining the tongue by guarding it from trivial or idle talk. So trivial and idle talk is not haram, it's just a waste of energy. You're talking for no purpose. There is no worldly benefit and no benefit in akhirah. So refraining from trivial and idle talk, and to restrain the tongue from lying, backbiting, gossip, offensive speech, ridiculing others, perjury, and from breaking promises. All of these are the what? The sins of the tongue. To restrain the hands by abstaining from what is forbidden, such as unlawful gains, obscenity, or taking the rights of others, manipulating weight and measure, theft, bribery, gambling, writing what is prohibited to speak or to say, hitting and harming others. Restraining the feet by refraining from seeking what a person has not been commanded or recommended to do. This includes informing against a fellow Muslim, going to unlawful places, and passing before a person who is praying without a barrier, either deliberately or unnecessarily. To protect one's private parts by abstaining from what is prohibited during the fasting hours, such as engaging in sexual intercourse, or from what is prohibited upon either a fasting person or another at other times, such as fornication, zina, so on and so forth. So protecting the sight, the hearing, the tongue, the hands, the feet, and the private parts. The Prophet ﷺ instructed us to control our tongues by refraining from offensive talk and to restrain the rest of our organs from offensive deeds, in his comprehensive words by saying, fasting is a shield. That when a person is fasting will be a shield to protect you from hellfire. If one of you is fasting, he should avoid rafath and should not behave foolishly. And if someone fights with a fasting person and insults him, he is to say, I am fasting. Either he says it to the other person, I am fasting, or he says it to himself, remind himself that I am fasting. I should not engage in obscenity or in quarrel, in fighting, arguing, so on and so forth. Because that goes against the very teaching of fasting, that is the teaching of patience, to acquire patience. And so if you engage in foolishness and obscenity, then you are not being patient. Somebody has triggered you and you engage, then you have lost your patience. You have lost control over yourself. It is imperative to restrain the organs from committing sins both during the fast and at other times. It's not exclusive just for Ramadan. It's not exclusive only from Fajr until Maghrib. Throughout your 24-hour day and night, and throughout your life. However, we mentioned this in relation to fasting because the prohibition is greater at this time than any other. So your sin in Ramadan is greater than your sin outside of Ramadan. Because here you are showing contempt, and you are showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that despite His mercy and His countless blessings in this month of Ramadan, you are indifferent, and so you are continuing to sin. I do not care for the mercy. I do not care for the forgiveness. A person who follows his whims and desires and insists on disobeying his Lord must know that he will not earn the reward of fasting Ramadan, and that thirst and hunger will be his only reward. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, many are those who fast whose fast does not profit them, benefit them with anything save hunger and thirst. And many are those whose night vigil, staying up at night in worship, does not bring them anything save wakefulness during the night. In another hadith, Rasulullah said, he who does not abstain from lying and from practicing falsehood, Allah is in no need of his giving up his food and drink. Allah doesn't need you to give up your food and drink if you are not willing to give up the sins. Okay, so now some rulings, inshallah. Conditions of the fast. We're not going to get too technical, but when you hear conditions, what do we understand from conditions?
Medical condition.
Requirements, yeah.
Medical condition.
Condition is what is required prior to fasting. Before you start the fast, these things have to fall into place so that you can start the fast. What are, for example, the conditions of prayer are that it is the time of prayer, that you are facing the Qibla, that you are pure in the state of Tahara, you've made your wudu, that your clothing is clean, that the place that you are praying is clean and pure. These are preconditions, if you like, prior to beginning the fast. So what is required? Number one, that a person is Muslim, because Allah does not accept the good deeds of the one who does not believe in Him. Has reached the age of puberty. It is only an obligation on the man and the woman when they have reached the age of puberty. Before that, they are encouraged to fast, but it is not compulsory. That a person is sane, because Allah only commands those who have the intellect to understand His commandment, is capable of bearing the fast. And so that person does not have within themselves, or they are not in a state where they are not able to bear the fast, or something that stops them from fasting. For example, good health. You have to have both the mental ability and the physical ability to fast. And so fasting is not obligatory upon a person for whom it entails intolerable hardship, maybe due to old age. And although it is difficult to explain that to people when they advance in age, they're in the habit of fasting, and so they don't want to give it up. They see that it's wrong for them to eat, but actually you've fasted your entire life and you've obeyed the commandment of Allah. And so it should be explained to them that now Allah is giving you a free pass. Allah is saying that you cannot do it anymore, so the obligation is uplifted. You can make it up by paying the fidya. Actually, in the madhab of Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh, the elderly person who cannot fast, the fidya is only a recommendation. They say that if it is beyond their ability, then they do not fast, because it cannot be imagined that their health is going to be, and youth is going to be restored so they can go back to fasting. So it's not a temporary state. It is it's going to go on until a person passes away. And so good health is a requirement. That a person is not traveling. Why? Because when a person is traveling, the distance that makes it permissible to shorten the prayer, 47, 48, 50 miles distance, then a person is permitted to, here, they are not obliged to fast, regardless of whether the journey is difficult or not. Some people say, oh, well, now we're traveling in cars, we're traveling in trains, and that shouldn't apply. No, you are a traveler. It is better to fast if it is not difficult for you to fast. But you are exempt in the sense that Allah has given you the option of not fasting. So if a person is a traveler. Or the existence of a preventative. For example, a female in her menses, a woman in her menses, or postnatal bleeding, or in her pregnancy, or breastfeeding. So obviously, during menses and postnatal bleeding, it is not permissible to fast. Haram. Right? And so let's say, for example, and often we get these questions, so we'll clarify them. the day started, the woman was fasting, and then her cycle began, she will stop fasting, she has to eat and drink. There is no need to refrain and remain fasted now, because you do not fulfill the conditions that are required for fasting. Likewise, if postnatal bleeding or the menses come to an end in the middle of the day, it is dhuhr time, for example, and now the woman is pure and she wants to start fasting, no, she will not fast, because the fast is required from what? From the time of Fajr until the time of Maghrib. So there is no requirement for her to stop eating or drinking. And so the conditions or the requirements that a person is Muslim, reach the age of puberty, that has the mental ability, meaning they understand when the fast starts. So people with dementia and things of that sort, they shouldn't fast, because they can't, make sense of time and the passing of time. And a person has to have the physical ability, the physical health to fast, and they should not be something that is a preventative, a state that is preventative, for example, menses or postnatal bleeding. A person who needs to refrain from fasting due to an excuse is not obliged to fast, though he must make up his unperformed fast after the excuse ends. So if a person has a temporary excuse, for example, traveling, for example, a temporary illness, then once they have recovered, they will continue fasting, and then the month of Ramadan, and then after the passing of Ramadan, they will make up for the days that they had missed. Someone who cannot make up his unperformed fast days, such as a chronically ill person, they're never going to recover. It is a lifelong condition. Sometimes people with extreme level of diabetes, they are not able to fast. They're taking insulin multiple times in a day, and they are not able to fast. So that person cannot be expected to make up the fast later. Such as a chronically ill person who is not capable of bearing the fast is obliged to make fidya, compensation. And so if anybody is in that situation where they have to give fidya, they should seek the ruling from a knowledgeable person. But in general, we will say that there is a difference of opinion on how much fidya a person needs to give. So the amount. Granted that generally we consider the amount for the fidya is the same as the one for Zakatul Fitr. So Zakatul Fitr is around about, at the lowest this year, is probably going to be about £5, highest £7, £8. Different masajid or different charities have a different number. And so that is one school of thought, that the person who cannot fast due to a chronic illness, and they will give fidya, which is the amount of Zakatul Fitr for every day of Ramadan. So example, somebody has diabetes, you have 30 days of Ramadan multiplied by 5. However, you can only give out this fidya once Ramadan has started. Why? Because giving it before Ramadan is similar to a person praying dhuhr at 10 o'clock. Dhuhr time hasn't come. It is not an obligation on you yet, and you are trying to fulfill that obligation. So Ramadan has to have started, and then a person can give the fidya. Also, conditions of a valid fast: that it should be the time of fasting. It is obviously a condition. For you to fast the month of Ramadan, the month of Ramadan has to have started. How do we know that Ramadan has started? With the sighting of the moon. If we do not sight the moon, 29 days of Sha'ban have passed. We tried sighting the moon, we could not sight the moon. Then we will complete 30 days of Sha'ban and then follow it by the month of Ramadan. So time of fasting, meaning a fasting day must not coincide with a day on which it is prohibited to fast. For example, Yawm al-Fitr. In Eid, you cannot fast in Eid. It is not permissible. Eid al-Adha or the 3 days following Eid al-Adha, it is not permitted to fast. And so it has to be a time of fasting. Number one, where the fast is not prohibited, and if you are fulfilling an obligation, then it has to be in the month of Ramadan. Or if a person had made a vow that he would fast a particular day, then they have to wait for that day in order to fulfill that obligation. Okay, so these are the conditions before fasting. What are the requirements in the fasting? What are the obligations? Huh? How many obligations are there to the fast? Huh? So many? No, obligations are only 2. It's very easy. Once you fulfill the conditions, preconditions, then you just need to do 2 things. One is intention, niyyah. And second is refraining from anything that invalidates the fast. Simple. Because fasting is to abstain. So abstaining from anything that will nullify the fast. And when we talk about things that nullify the fast, the things that break the fast, eating, drinking, sexual activity, these are the things that break the fast. Lying does not break the fast. Backbiting does not break the fast. These things, they nullify the reward of the fast, but they do not break the fast itself. No sin breaks the fast other than eating, drinking, or engaging in intercourse. And so the integrals of fasting, meaning the obligations of the fast, are number one, the intention. And he says, according to opinion of the majority of scholars, it is a condition to make the intention on the eve of the fast prior to dawn. This is the majority and this is the safest. Before Fajr, you have made intention. And so you can make it from Maghrib all the way until Fajr. Just the thought that I intend to fast tomorrow in order to fulfill my obligation and to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person must make intention to fast each day of Ramadan separately. The exception to this is the Maliki school, who say in the beginning of Ramadan, if you make intention and say, I will fast the entire month of Ramadan, this is good enough. Unless you've had to break the fast due to an illness, or a woman is in a state of impurity, or you traveled. After that, you would have to make intention every day of Ramadan. But essentially, the majority opinion is every night of Ramadan you should make intention that you will fast the next day. And so the time is from Maghrib until Fajr. It should not happen that a person, Fajr comes and they have not made intention. Yes, this can happen, that you wake up at Fajr time and you've forgotten that it's the first day of Ramadan. That is possible. As long as you have made intention prior to it, then it will be acceptable, inshallah. No, every day. Yeah, because just like you make intention for each different salah. There are 5 salah in a day. You don't make just one intention, right? At the time of Fajr, you make intention. Why? Because now the command has come, so you have to intend to fulfill it. Yeah. If you intend to fast the entire Ramadan, you do not know whether you are going to live to the 2nd, 3rd, 15th, 20th day of Ramadan. The obligation on you is just tomorrow. That tomorrow I'm going to fast and fulfill this obligation to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So is that easy? Any questions on the conditions? Conditions are simple. You have to be Muslim.
You don't need to declare, right? Like by word, you're gonna fast.
No.
It's just like you wake up.
No, there is no need no. There's no need to word the intention. The intention is an action of the heart. Yeah, so we are taught how to make intention. I am fasting this day of Ramadan in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am praying this Farida of Dhuhr. This is just so that you know what you should think. Okay, putting it out in words so that you know what you should think, what you should intend in your heart. Not to actually repeat those words. Yeah, because Allah is the one who measures and knows your intention. Your intention is not for other people. So be a Muslim. Islam is a condition. Second is age of puberty. Third is that a person is sane, sanity. Fourth is physically able to fast, that there is nothing which is preventative, such as postnatal bleeding or anything of that sort. Okay, and then another condition for us is that the time of Ramadan has entered, because this is the fast of Ramadan. The requirements whilst you are fasting are two. One is intention, and that should be done between Maghrib all the way until Fajr, before the fasting actually begins, fasting day. And the second is to refrain from everything that invalidates the fast. Okay, let us look at the actions which invalidates the fast. Things that nullify the fast. These include the deliberate introduction of anything into a body cavity through an opening, such as through the mouth or through the nose. So introducing anything into the body through the mouth or through the nose. Example, entrances of the body that lead to the stomach. Okay, so applying gels, oils, creams, you're introducing something to the body, but it's not going through an opening. The pores of the skin are not openings. Okay. Applying anything in your eyes does not invalidate your fast. Generally, applying things in your ears don't go down to your stomach, so it does not invalidate the fast. So what one has to be careful of is the nose, the mouth, and back passage. These are the things that will take or will bring something within the cavity of the body. Understood? Yes. Yeah, you cannot. Yeah. So Rasulullah said that when you are fasting, then do not rinse your mouth excessively. So don't gargle. And also when you are rinsing your nose or inhaling, do not inhale forcefully, because that will take water down into the stomach. Okay. So generally we are asked to be thorough in our cleaning of the mouth and the nose, except, Rasulullah said, except when you are fasting. Okay. And so the easiest or the cue here is that when you are rinsing your mouth, have your head tilted forward and not backwards. Yeah. Likewise when you are rinsing your nose. Yes? Huh? Does it go into the cavity of the body? Yeah, there you go. That's the answer. So anything that does not go inside the body, so toothpaste, some have said it is permissible, some have said it is disliked because it has a taste. But it is not nutritious and it does not go into the body, right? It remains in the mouth and then it is spat out. But if you were to use it, then make sure you rinse your mouth thoroughly, so that you are not. It breaks the fast. Nasal spray, asthma pumps, these break the fast because it's going down your throat. Anything that goes past your throat, through your mouth, past your throat. So with the toothpaste, it stays in your mouth, it doesn't go down your throat. Anything that goes down your throat, through your mouth or through your nose, will invalidate your fast.
Nasal spray is not like
it doesn't matter. You feel it.
It's not like it just feels.
It doesn't matter. You feel it. If you feel something trickling down your throat, then your fast is invalid. So, deliberate introduction of anything into the body cavity. Vaginal or anal intercourse. Both will break the fast. Ejaculation, whether it is the result of touching, kissing, or anything else, this will nullify the fast. Inducing vomit, a person who makes themselves vomit. Obviously, if it happens unintentionally, somebody ate too much, sometimes it happens, right? You eat too much in suhoor and you're rushing for fajr and you feel like something, something comes up. So this is not induced. Induced is when you are yourself forcing out. So here that will nullify your fast. Menstruation, postnatal bleeding, insanity. If a person loses their mind, so there is a difference between insanity and the loss of consciousness. Insanity is a person who doesn't, they've lost their mind. That person, their fast is broken. And so if it is just a moment of the day, and then they regain sanity, they will have to make that day. Why? Because the command of Allah is directed to the mind. A person has to have understanding. We said sanity is required as a condition, precondition for fasting. Apostasy, kufr. You see, when if a person leaves Islam, if they were to leave Islam, and so people who have waswasa and all of this should not consider this, okay? Let's not get into a cycle of, oh, maybe I thought something that is a kufr and now I'm not fasting and I need to make up the day, and shaitan comes and plays with their minds. No, this is apostasy. Wal-'iyadhu billah, a person saying, I am no longer a Muslim. That statement. Or I no longer believe in Allah. I no longer believe in the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I no longer believe in akhirah, paradise, hellfire. This is apostasy when it is very clear that a person has left Islam. Obviously that nullifies the fast. Because the command of Allah is directed to the Muslim, to the believer. So these are the nullifiers of the fast. These are the things that will break your fast. Anything else does not nullify your fast. And if it happens, then do not assume that your fast is broken until you have checked. Right? Often we get these questions. Oh, I assumed. Who asked you to? Is it mentioned in the nullifiers? No, it is not. Okay, then your fast is not broken. What are the excuses that permit a person to break their fast? It is permissible for someone for whom fasting is obligatory to refrain from fasting due to any of the following reasons. Number one, inability to fast due to old age or a chronic illness that is incompatible with fasting. You have a condition for which you need medication. Now, if you are able, often there are people who are taking lifelong medication, but you're able to maybe take the medication at suhoor time and at iftar time, fine, fast. Okay. People with that are taking certain medication for mental health also, if they're able to adjust the timing of taking the medication, they can have it early morning before Fajr, they can have it in the evening. This is not a valid reason to stop fasting. So taking antidepressants and that sort of thing, right? People with, let's say for example, heart medication, and they take medication throughout the day, it's a different matter. Okay, so the person has to be chronically ill, and if they don't have the medication in that specified time, then either their illness is going to be prolonged, is going to get worse, or there is fear of them losing their life. Get worse, prolonged, or loss of life. And so generally we say, fuqaha say, that when you want to get advice about your fasting, don't go to your local GP. Because they got no idea how important the fast is and the rulings of fasting the month of Ramadan. You need the advice of a medical professional, but one that is Muslim. Okay, so we have doctors in our community. Go and check. If you're taking medication, go and check with your local doctors, a Muslim doctor. Some say two. One of them is not enough. There has to be two Muslim doctors who say to you that you absolutely have to take this medication. You cannot fast at these specific times. Okay, and so if a person has a chronic illness or condition, they should seek advice from a Muslim doctor who understands the obligation of fasting. Yeah? Because non-Muslims see it as, yeah, it's a nice thing Muslims do. And so for the slightest reason, they will say to you, oh, you don't need to fast. Just take the medication. It's okay. And so when people say, oh, my doctor said, the first question is your doctor Muslim? No. Okay. Then seek the advice of a Muslim doctor. And if the Muslim doctor tells you, confirms that, then absolutely. If not, then you need to fast. And you are not exempt. Okay, so the things that are permitting for the breaking of the fast is inability to fast due to old age or chronic illness, excessive hardship, such as that experienced by one who has a temporary illness or experiences excessive hunger or thirst that may lead to harm. Okay, so a person is working a physically demanding job, and extreme heat, become dehydrated, they feel they're going to lose consciousness, they feel like they are getting harmed. Now it is permitted for them to break the fast. There's no illness, but they've reached a level of thirst and hunger where they are going to suffer harm. So Allah does not want for us to harm ourselves. Allah says, I want ease for you, I do not want hardship for you. Okay. So if it comes to the extent where a person is going to harm themselves, loss of life, loss of consciousness, loss of a limb, things of that sort, or it is a temporary illness, but let's say for example you have an illness where it started light, and then as the day progresses it becomes more and more, and then your fever is increasing. Now fever is not a sort of illness that generally will kill a person, but right now you need medication, so you need to take the medication because you're going to harm yourself. If you wait until Maghrib to take the medication, you're going to harm yourself. You need to hydrate yourself, you need to take medication. Temporary, 2-3 days, you get better, start fasting again. So one is a person who's not able to fast. One is a person who is able to fast, but there is excessive hardship. So this person is also permitted to break their fast. Traveling, number 3. This involves traveling for a legal purpose. A halal purpose. If a person is traveling to commit something that is haram, then they are not permitted to break the fast for that. Your traveling is for haram, so how are you going to justify not fasting? Okay, you should not actually be traveling to commit the haram. If you happen to be, then you are not exempt from fasting. Pregnancy. Now with pregnancy, a pregnant woman is permitted to fast. It's not like a woman in her cycle, she's not permitted to fast. Pregnant woman is permitted to fast for as long as it does not cause her or the fetus or the baby any hardship, any harm. Okay, if she feels she's going to harm herself or to harm the life in her womb, then she has to break her fast. If she can fast with some hardship but she chooses not to, she's entitled to that. Yeah, because she is pregnant, and she will make up the fast after the month of Ramadan. It is permissible for a pregnant woman who fears for herself to refrain from fasting, and she is obliged to make up the missed days of fasting at a later date. What is the reason? He says the reason for this is that her condition is comparable to that of an ill person, temporary ill. Right? She's not in a physical state of fasting. It's going to cause too much hardship. But if she fears for her unborn child and not for herself, she feels she's okay, but maybe she's had scans and things like that, and they say, well, the baby is not receiving enough nutrients and so on and so forth, and there is a fear for whatever. She fears for the child and not for herself. She is to refrain from fasting, and she is obliged to make up the missed fast in addition to paying a fidya, according to Ahmad, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Shafi rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. A woman is pregnant. She can fast without a problem, but she fears for the child. She eats in Ramadan for the sake of the child. She will make up the day and then she will pay fidya for that day. The exception to this is the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa says whether she eats for herself or for her child, she does not need to make up the, she does not need to pay fidya, she will only make up the day of fasting. Nursing, a woman that is nursing her child. The same thing applies to the pregnant woman. If a woman is nursing and she does not want to fast, she does not fast because she fears for herself, she is weakened, and she fears that she's going to harm herself, no problem. Break the fast, make up the days after Ramadan. If she fears for her child, she is physically okay, but the child is not going to get milk and so on and so forth, and maybe her milk is reduced, and the child is already malnourished, for example, or they're not taking any solids, they can only take mother's milk. She fears for the child, then the same ruling applies that we've just mentioned. According to Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i and Imam Malik, she will eat that day. After Ramadan, she will make up the day and pay the fidya. And according to the Hanafi school of thought, if a nursing woman breaks her fast because of nursing, then she just has to make up the day which she has broken, or the days she has broken. Number 6, saving a life. If it requires that you break your fast in order to save a life, then you should do so. Right. So a person, let's say for example, a heart surgeon, it's 4 p.m. and they have to perform major surgery on a person that is, between life and death, and they're all shaky, they haven't had their caffeine fix, right? They need food, their sugar levels are dropping low, they can't focus, they can't concentrate, they can't even see, vision is blurry. Now they need to, this is saving a life, okay? So that person can break his or her fast in order to save the life of somebody. But only in the case, now all of the nurses, all of the Muslim doctors are going to say, well, we're saving lives. So Ramadan Mubarak to you all. We're just going to carry on doing what we're doing. No, it's when the time comes, okay, you're placed in a situation where, you can't perform that surgery, for example, unless you eat and drink and gain some alertness. Without that you cannot do it, then it is permitted. Saving a life. If saving the life of a person on the verge of death or in partial danger is contingent on refraining from fasting, then it is permissible for the savior to do so, to ward off the greater of two evils or harms. This becomes a duty if no one else can be found to perform the rescue, and he is to make up the missed fast days later. So let's say for example you have two heart surgeons, you have a Muslim and a non-Muslim, right? And so there is the option of a non-Muslim saving the life of this person. Then the Muslim doctor is permitted to break the fast, but if they abstain, there's no harm. You can say, my colleague will do it. But there's no one, you're the only one on call, there's nobody else they're going to reach out to, and then it is an obligation on you to save the life of a person and to break your fast. So there comes a time where you are obliged to break the fast. If your life is endangered, if the life of another person is endangered, and you are the only one who can save him or her, and the only one to save him or her is to break your fast. Imagine a person is at sea and they're drowning, and somebody has to go in, and so it is expected that that person is most probably going to, you're not just swimming for enjoyment. You're going to save a person, so you're going to get pulled inside. You're going to drink water. So you can't say, oh no, I'm not going to help them because my fast. No. Just like in salah. Salah, we're not permitted to speak, we're not permitted to come out of salah, we're not permitted to make movements that are not part of salah. But you're praying salah and somebody falls right in the stuff in front of you and they've just dropped. You just don't continue reading salah. Right? You save that person. You break your salah. 1-2 people can break their salah, come out from the jama'ah and attend to that person. As many as it takes in order to save a life. Because life is sacred in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. What is the ruling for refraining from fasting due to a reason other than the above? So these are the excusable reasons, where a person, if any of the reasons, if a person finds himself in any of these states, then they are excused from fasting. What if you don't have a valid reason? What are the examples of not a valid reason? Exams. Not so much now, but it happened, when Ramadan was falling in May and June and what have you, students were saying, oh, how are we gonna fast? We've got exams. That is not a valid reason. Okay, your job is too difficult. It's not a valid reason. You fast, you start your work. If you come to a point where you are now struggling and you've reached a level where there is hardship and there's going to be harm to yourself, then you can break the fast. You don't just say, oh, I'm a construction worker, it's 35 degrees outside, I'm not going to fast. No. You got to find yourself in a situation that exempts you from fasting or gives you the permission to break your fast. Understood? Refraining from fasting without an excuse is an enormity. It is a major sin for which there is no expiation except sincere repentance. The Rasulullah says, whoever refrains from fasting a day of Ramadan without an excuse or cause of illness cannot requite it by fasting a lifetime, even were he to do so. Now there is expiation, which is fasting 2 consecutive months. We're not going to go into the details of that because that will take a lot of time, and in most likeliness these things are not going to happen. But if a person falls into intentionally breaking the fast, then they need to go and get the ruling, and they need to understand, because there are differences of opinion. Okay, some ulama hold that the expiation, which is the fasting of 2 consecutive months, only happens if a person has sexual intercourse, marital relations, during the day of Ramadan, according to some. According to others, if a person eats, drinks, or marital relations intentionally, they have to do the kaffara, which is fasting 2 consecutive months. And so if anything happens intentionally that breaks the fast, eating, drinking, taking some sort of medication, smoking, vaping, all of these things break the fast. You can't say, oh, I thought, and because there is some leeway for the person who assumed that something does not break the fast and it came out that it does. I, for example, had asthma attack, took asthma pump, and they assumed that their fast was valid. No problem, they have a reason for it. But somebody who has committed a sin, they cannot make an excuse of, oh, I was not aware. Right? What are the things that are disliked? So we talked about what is required before the fast. We talked about the 2 main elements of fasting, which is intention and to refrain from anything that nullifies the fast. We listed the nullifiers of the fast, the things that break the fast. We spoke about who is exempt from fasting. What are the acceptable reasons for which a person can refrain from fasting during the month of Ramadan. Now we are looking at disliked matters. Disliked matters means that if you do any of these things, they don't break your fast, but they will reduce your reward. And the reason you always have disliked is to put a barrier between you and haram. So fasting, nullifier of fasting, and then you have a barrier between the two. Yeah, buffer zone. Don't get into this, ideally. You will get maximum reward. If you happen to get into this, know that you're in danger. You're in danger. So if you just remain there, you don't go ahead, you don't fall into a nullifier, okay, your fast is intact, it is valid, you've reduced your reward. And so what are those? He says, disliked matters. These include acts that are disliked. The person who forsakes them is rewarded. And so if you don't do the disliked things knowingly with the intention that I want to get full reward for my fast, and so I know these things are disliked, I will not do them, he will receive, that person, he or she will receive more reward. Although doing them does not invalidate the fast, so they are not nullifiers. They include rinsing out the mouth and nose excessively due to the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, rinse out your nose thoroughly except when you are fasting. So a person is thoroughly rinsing their mouth and nose, but nothing goes to their throat. This is disliked. Okay.
No, you're in danger zone.
Huh?
You're in danger zone.
But you are in danger zone. Yeah. So because of that, it is disliked. Number 2, tasting of the food. Tasting of food. Allah prevented it from eating. Taste does not nourish. Taste happens here. Taste buds are on your tongue. Right? Tongue, mind. Doesn't go through the cavity of the body. And so tasting is not permissible. If what you are tasting is going, because I don't want somebody to say, oh well, chewing gum, innit? Eating it. Yeah, but then particles of that chewing gum are going to find their place to your. So it is tasting only of the tongue without anything going down into the belly or into the body. Nothing goes past the throat. So generally, if you tasted something, you have something in your mouth and you felt it in your throat, then your fast has been nullified. Because particles have gone down. Is that understood? So tasting is disliked. Yeah. Now, a person is at sea, they're making wudu, they're going to taste the salt. Their fast is valid. But best to refrain from tasting food. Number 3, gathering saliva in the mouth and swallowing it. I don't think anybody would do that, but kissing as well as touching one's spouse or anything that is preliminary to marital relations. So hugging and all of this, it's danger zone. We don't want to fall into the nullifier, which is the act of intercourse. Okay, anything that can lead to that, you have to refrain from. It is better. Okay, if it is done, the touch and the kiss or whatever is done without desire, then there is no harm in that. Yeah, just like for example, you can show affection without any physical desire. The way we show affection to friends and so on and so forth, family members. There's no qualms in that. It is only when the desire is ignited, that's where it's a problem. So here, this is disliked. It's not haram. It does not invalidate your fast, but it will take away some of the reward. Wet cupping. Wet cupping is disliked. Why? Because you could go for cupping, and then now you're in a state where you need to have something because you're passing out. You need to have something. You have to have a drink of water or something sweet. So in of itself, the letting of blood is nothing coming into the body, it's something coming out of the body. Okay, and then also to remember that injections, if they are going into the muscle and they are not nourishing the body, then they do not invalidate the fast. Going to the dentist, for example, as long as nothing goes down your throat, your fast is valid. You get these local anesthetic, numbing your gums and what have you, does not invalidate your fast. anything else that is applied, maybe they're going to do a surgery or something like that, does not nullify your fast. But it is better to refrain unless there is a sort of immediate danger, or there is a reason to do it. Number 6, smelling items such as musk, incense, and the like, the particles of which can reach the throat. So it's not actually the smelling of perfume, right? But smelling that which could possibly reach your throat. Yeah? So for example, you've got bakhur, yeah, or you're spraying and you're putting your face to it. Yeah? So here there is a possibility that you may take something in. This is disliked. Okay? Or for example, the smoke of bakhur, to inhale that, because it has particles, that would do what? It will invalidate the fast. So smelling items such as musk and incense and the like, the particles of which can reach the throat.
But you can put like after Maghrib, like.
Yeah, you can apply perfume. There's no problem applying perfume. Yeah, bakhur after Maghrib, yeah, of course. Number 7, being preoccupied with pastimes because they involve amusements that are incompatible with fasting and its spiritual meanings. Being preoccupied, it's the day of Ramadan and you're doing a football tournament, morning to evening. We're not talking about the little 5-a-side game for 30, 45 minutes, no problem. But you're doing your whole day of Ramadan is a cricket match. It started at 9 o'clock and it finishes at Asr time. Yeah, it says you have not broken your fast, it's not a nullifier, but it's disliked. The idea of fasting is to do more worship, tend to your necessities and do more worship, right? And so if you spend your whole day playing PS, what is it, 5 now? PS4, PS5, the whole day, provided that you've prayed your salah. If you haven't prayed your salah, then, But you've prayed your salah. You played you slept from Fajr until Dhuhr. And then you woke up at Dhuhr and then you played until Asr, then you prayed Asr, then you played until Maghrib. Your fast is valid, but it's disliked, obviously. Number 8. Using the siwak after noon, according to Shafi'i scholars. But this is contrary to the other madhahib. All the other madhahib say there's nothing wrong with using the miswak throughout the day. Shafi'is say that in the afternoon you should not use the miswak. Only use it in the morning. Don't ask me why, I don't know. Okay. It is not disliked. Okay. What are the things that are lawful in fasting that maybe some people may consider that they may be disliked or unlawful? So things that are mistakenly considered as unlawful in the fasting. The lining of the eyes with kuhl. Yeah? Kuhl. Applying eyeshadow and what is it? Surma, things of that sort. Anything that beautifies the eye. So a person may say, oh well, when I apply it, I feel a taste in my throat. It was applied in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ and he did not prohibit it during the fast. Okay? So applying the kuhl or lining the eyes with kuhl. Number 2, eye drops does not invalidate the fast. Number 3, oils, creams, even if they reach a body cavity through skin pores. Your oils and creams are permitted to use. Why? Because if that's the case, then we shouldn't even make wudu. Because the body does absorb the water through the pores. So what are you going to say? And there are people who do this. It is known as a dry fast. This is for non-religious reasons. To refrain from eating food and consuming water, and they go to the extent of not even touching water in order to fully dehydrate the body and force the body to rid itself of toxins and so on and so forth. And so they won't even wash themselves because if you stop taking water from the mouth, then what the body is going to be doing is whatever it gets your body gets in contact with water, it's going to absorb that moisture in order to hydrate itself. So, but we are making wudu, we are making ghusl, we are, and so applying oils, creams, gels, and things of that sort do not break the fast. Number 4, washing the siwak before noon. Washing the siwak, using the siwak before noon, or throughout the day in the other schools, all the other schools. Number 5, washing. So washing yourself. It is reported that Rasulullah ﷺ, due to intense heat, would pour water over his head and his body. So, you're working extremely difficult job, or you are very hot. Even rinsing of the mouth, when you get extremely thirsty and the tongue start to stick to the palate, maybe you're extremely nervous, whatever, rinse your mouth, permissible, as long as you don't take anything in. Pour water, cold water on your head, on your body, take a shower to re-energize, all permissible. Yeah. Number 6, injections, whether intravenous or intramuscular. These, they will not break the fast. Enemas will break the fast, obviously, because that is going through the back passage, it's going through the cavity of the body. But anything that, for example, a vaccine or something of that sort, it goes into the muscle, does not invalidate. Huh? Yeah, acupuncture does not invalidate the fast, obviously, because there's nothing going in. Sleeping does not invalidate the fast. He says, even if a person was to sleep throughout the daylight hours, from Fajr all the way until Maghrib, provided the person does not intend by this to neglect the prescribed prayer. Let's say, for example, a person worked, a series of night shifts and then came home and went to sleep just before Fajr thinking, I'm going to wake up and have suhoor, and then they're just out cold until, I don't know, Maghrib time. So it does not sleeping does not invalidate the fast. Yeah, even if a person slept throughout their day, as long as they made intention. Number 8, swallowing anything that one cannot guard against, such as saliva, road dust. And he says it is also permissible to smell sweet fragrances. So a fragrance that does not have any particles, you're permitted, right? Smelling does not invalidate the fast in any way, does not reduce the reward in any way. And swallowing things like your saliva, or you're walking around a smoke, dust, road dust. You can't protect yourself from that, and so that does not invalidate the fast. Last portion, inshallah, we'll finish with this. Things that are desirable to do during the fast. So we looked at preconditions, what is required in the fast, what will break the fast, when is it permitted for a person not to fast. We looked at things that are disliked. We looked at things that are permissible but may be considered by people to be not permissible during the fast. Now these are the things that are desirable, recommended, meaning that the disliked matters will reduce your reward. The desirable matters will increase the reward of your fast. Meaning doing the fast with it or without it is not the same. If you include these things, then the reward will increase. Eating suhoor. No, I want to get hungry. Okay? Allah said, eat suhoor. Get hungry, we don't care. The command is, Rasulullah ﷺ stated, eat suhoor, for it is a blessing. Right? So Allah wants you to eat or drink something. Now, if you happen not to wake up, no problem, your fast is valid. But it is desirable to wake up for suhoor. And desirable to eat or drink something, even if you don't feel the need to. You don't feel the need to. You're not hungry, mashallah, you had a good iftar, you hydrated yourself. I don't feel hungry, I don't feel like I need to drink. But it is desirable. So your reward is, and so it is not, the idea is not that the more hardship you inflict on yourself, the more reward you are going to get. No. It's the more you follow the injunction of Allah and the tradition of Rasulullah, the more reward you will have. So eating suhoor. Delaying suhoor. Meaning bringing suhoor very close to Fajr time. Yeah? Delaying suhoor. Not eating your suhoor at 12 o'clock at night and then going to bed and not waking up until 7. I had suhoor. No, delaying it. This is recommended. Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stopped to pray after we had our suhoor with him. And I asked him how long was the interval between adhan and suhoor. The time it takes to recite 50 verses of the Quran. So Rasulullah would have suhoor and then stand up to pray. And between the time that he had suhoor and the time of Fajr is what? Enough to recite 50 verses. That is maybe about 10, 15 minutes. And so people say, oh, when you have the prayer timetable, it says suhoor and sometimes, or it says imsak, and then it says Fajr time. And people say, oh, this is bid'ah. No bid'ah. This is a recommended time, 10 minutes before, 15 minutes before, that you stop eating, right? And now this new idea that we have, that you're allowed to eat and continue eating until you hear the adhan, and even that have a few morsels, no problem, because deen is, there is a time for the beginning of the fast, that is dawn, right? Okay, in the past, people maybe were not aware of true dawn. Not everybody was aware of true dawn. So they waited to hear the adhan. When they heard Allahu Akbar, they stopped eating. If they had anything in their mouth, they swallowed it. But now you have a clock and you have a timetable. So what excuse do you have? Yeah, if it says 5:15, then 5:15. You stop eating at 5:14. Right? Nobody says, I have a plane at 9 o'clock. It's okay if I go at 5:09. They'll be there 2 hours before. But when it comes to deen matters, it's okay. We heard in the madhab and of this, it's okay. The hadith says that you should delay, and they would eat, and they would hear the adhan and finish whatever they were eating. And somebody asked me this, and he said, I heard that if adhan starts and you're drinking, maybe just finish what you're drinking. I said, okay. So, what if a person is holding half a pint in his hand? What if he's holding a whole pint? He's holding a Coke bottle. How much? Oh, you have a time, precise time. So, ensure that you stop eating before that time. Actually, speaking of this, there is very important mas'ala that a lot of people get wrong. They wake up in the morning, suhoor time. They assume that it is suhoor time. It is not suhoor time. Let's say, for example, the time is moving back. Yesterday, suhoor ended at 5:15. I assume that is 5:15 today. I woke up, it's 5:12. Yeah, I'm eating, and then I get my phone out and it says, oh, suhoor 5:12. And I look at the time and it's 5:13. They say, oh, this was a mistake. Allah forgives the mistake. No. The mistake that Allah forgives is that when you've started fasting, you forgot that you were fasting and you ate and drank. That's what Allah forgives, and your fast is not invalidated. But it is your responsibility to know when Fajr begins. And so you don't eat until you know whether Fajr has begun or not when you wake up. Likewise, Maghrib time. I don't know if some of you have seen the funny video that a person is sleeping and somebody starts to sing and he gets up and he drinks water thinking that it is the adhan. Right? You have a responsibility to check that it is Maghrib time. Your phone just went Allahu Akbar, and you drank water. It's not Maghrib time yet. Something wrong with your app, with your phone. Right? Somebody's playing a prank on you, whatever it is. It's your responsibility to ensure that you are not eating when you are not supposed to eat. So this is not considered a mistake. Yes, maybe you will not be sinful, but it is not a mistake where you can just continue fasting and you don't have to make up that day. You have to make up that day. You woke up, you thought it's 5 o'clock, and it's actually 6 o'clock in the morning. Fajr has passed. And you had something to eat. And then you realize, oh no, Fajr has started already. Then you will have to continue fasting that day and make up that day later after the month of Ramadan. Hastening to break the fast. As soon as adhan time begins, one has to break fasting. Some people wait until Uncle Ashraf finishes La ilaha illallah, then they want to eat. And actually the mu'adhineen themselves make a big error that they want to give adhan first, then break their fast, where everybody else has broken their fast. So the mu'adhin is the one who is responsible for the time. When you've stood up to make adhan, it's time for maghrib. You know it's time for maghrib, break your fast. Sip of water, date, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Because the adhan is not for the fast, the adhan is for what? Salah. It is not the adhan that determines the time for breaking the fast. It is maghrib. Now maghrib has come, that's why you stood up for adhan. And so you should break your fast before. And people should not wait. There is another one that I've heard. They wait until they see people coming out from the masjid. They've prayed maghrib, then we break our fast. No. So hastening to break the fast. Rasulullah said, people will continue to adhere to good as long as they hasten to break their fast. Now, hastening to break the fast means that you break it with 1 date, 3 dates, a sip of water. Not you stay at home in order to eat samosa, pakora, all of this, and you miss out salah in the masjid to have iftar. No. Salah in the masjid. Doesn't matter. Yeah, pray your fard and leave immediately. If you're extremely hungry, you live at a distance from the masjid, so on and so forth. Pray and leave. Don't do adhkar, don't do sunnah, whatever, but pray your fard with jama'ah. Don't make the breaking the iftar, and it's very unfortunate. We miss out on the jama'ah. Even if there are people in your home, you've invited your family, so okay, we'll pray jama'ah here. Is your jama'ah at home like your jama'ah in the masjid? No. So come to the masjid, offer your salah, inshallah. Supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the fast and before breaking it. During your fast and before breaking it. This is highly recommended. Rasulullah said there are 3 categories of people whose supplications are never rejected, and he mentioned the fasting person until he breaks his fast. Breaking the fast with ripe dates. If ripe dates are not readily available, with dried dates. If not, then with water. Rasulullah is reported to have, Anas radiallahu anhu is reported to have said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would break his fast with fresh ripe dates before praying. If not, he would eat dried dates. If not, he would take a few sips of water. And then, what is also highly recommended is abstaining from what is incompatible with fasting and its spiritualities. Yeah? Things that are, like we mentioned, maybe some things are halal, permissible, but it's just a waste of time. And so you're encouraged to stay away from these things in order to increase the reward of fasting. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding and to enable us to act accordingly. We'll take a few questions, inshallah. Yes.
When Muslim going for azan, they should have dates and water, then give
Yeah,
azan.
yeah.
That's what I'm Bible.
Yeah, they should have 1 date, 1 sip of water.
And give azan.
Is Ramadan accepted because no praying, no doing zakah, only just praying, only fasting
okay.
for 30 years, only Ramadan. It's accepted.
Yes, the fast is accepted, they have no reward. Which means Allah will not punish them. See, Allah is just. So Allah will not, one person has not prayed for 30 years, but he was fasting. And another person did not pray, did not fast. Their punishment will not be the same. So Allah will not punish that person for not fasting Ramadan, although they will have no reward. Yes.
I've seen Masai in doctors, they finish like 10 minutes early before the beginning time of the suhoor. Just to finish.
Yeah, it should be. And actually that time is ideal, is about 10 minutes before Fajr. You stop eating, go and make your wudu, and engage in some dhikr, recitation of Quran. Ideal. If a person was to push it, then there is no harm, as long as they know the time of Fajr and they stop before it.
If it's for fasting outside of Ramadan,
Yeah.
for the women, often it comes like after afternoon, for example, and okay, she have to break the fast, but does she have to fulfill another day only because of she already done the
Yeah, there is a difference of opinion about a person who is fasting a voluntary fast and then they have to break it for whatever reason. Then according to some scholars, that becomes an obligation for them to do, especially the Maliki school. I'm not entirely sure about the Hanafi school. So I think in the Hanafi school it's not compulsory to redo, but in some schools it is compulsory. Yeah?
About the school, I have a confusion somewhere. Do we have to follow one school specifically?
Yes, you have.
Probably, maybe whatever you find more like a good source, let's say.
No, don't make that mistake. No, you have to, this is the idea. You have to follow a school of thought, because when the differences of opinion occur, then you are not equipped, we are not equipped to determine what is the strongest opinion, what is the correct opinion. So, follow the school of thought that you have been taught.
But that's what we ask the imams, let's say, when this comes.
Yeah, but the imam is following a school of thought. I am following the Maliki madhab. And most imams are following a school of thought.
So then that's the confusion also comes. So I'm in this area, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, so the idea, no, you're not playing. This has only happened now, because now we are living in a multicultural society. Whereas in the past, people of a certain area, all of the scholars, for example, you go to Morocco, all of the scholars are Maliki. You go to Egypt, all of the scholars are Shafi'i, with the exception, some are Maliki, some are Shafi'i. You go to India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, majority of scholars are Hanafi. So you had madhahib were in accordance to areas. It's only because we've come here, then you can have multiple people in the congregation. That's why you should stick to whatever school of thought you are following. And so when you ask your imam, you say, Imam, can I have the ruling for this? By the way, I follow the Hanafi school. And then they will tell you. If they don't know, they will find out for you. Yeah.
But now the age is like you have phones, you have internet.
Doesn't matter.
Like you can find it very
Yeah, so will you take the phone, read on the phone and perform surgery on yourself or on your wife? So why would you do that in deen? Yeah, the information is there for understanding, but not to adopt a ruling. Information is available. Do you go and fight your own court case? No. It's available. Law books are available. You can download PDF files, this, that, whatever. But for rulings, you ask. And that information is there for me to understand. Why is the ruling? Why is it like that? Why is it not like that? What is the differences of opinion? But not to adopt an opinion. That is not my job.
So, let's say a couple of people, I asked in Finchley Mosque Imam while they pray bitter in a different way. So I asked, and then he gave he gave the different opinion, and they said this is the most strongest one. So I said, which one shall I follow? Then he said, you already know which one you should follow. This is the strongest one. So then it comes to the question like, as I said, like which one I'm going to follow, because I'm not really understanding. Like,
actually, to say the strongest opinion is not entirely correct, because sometimes the opinion have very similar evidence, and you can't discern which one is the strongest. So the correct thing to say is, according to my understanding, the strongest opinion is this. So your understanding may be different from mine. That is why I am following Maliki, you are following Hanafi, for example. Because to me, the strongest is Maliki. To you, the strongest is Hanafi. Do you understand? Because people are not of the same level of intellect, and their understanding is not the same, and their knowledge is not the same. But just because mine is, I feel that mine is the strongest opinion, that's why I act on it. Yeah? And I do not compel others. So what the Shaykh said to you, the strongest opinion according to him, his understanding, his research, his knowledge, not according to you. Because if that was the case, then we'd always it'd be so simple, let's take the strongest opinion. But that is not the case. And so if you ever looked at, and there are books that will give you the details of why there is a particular ruling. And so when you read it, and you look at the evidence of one madhab, and then you look at the evidence of the opposing madhab, when you read this one, you're convinced. By the time you turn the page, you read this one, then you're convinced. Then you're confused. This is right, but this is also right. Which one do I take? Because madhahib are not just formed like this. They have very strong reasons why they've adopted the ruling. And each one will convince you. So I'm not in a position to judge which one is stronger. I don't know. So what I will do, I will stick with what I usually practice. It's the safest.
So a quick question, because you just raised this difference between out of topic. So how about the Tahiyyatul Masjid? I've heard, but I haven't come across any like text. You know, I just believe in if there is something written, we can read. You know, so not Arabic and translation in English. So I'm convinced that I think there is hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when a Sahabi entered the masjid, so he sat down. So he said, "Don't sit unless you pray 2 rak'ah Tahiyyatul Masjid." Is that like should be done regardless of?
Did the hadith say that that person entered the masjid after Salatul Asr? No.
But yeah, when
The hadith, so try to understand. The hadith says that the person came in and sat down, did not pray. Rasulullah said, when you come into the masjid, do not sit until you have prayed. Now, one school of thought says, regardless of the time, you have to pray because Rasulullah said, don't sit until you've prayed, so you should pray. Others said, no, you only pray if it is a time of prayer. So both of them are understanding of the same hadith. It's just one applied logic and said, no, if Rasulullah has already told us this time is disliked to pray after Asr, after you've prayed Asr prayer, dislike to pray until the time of Maghrib. And so it is Rasulullah who told us it's disliked to pray, which means that if I come in the masjid at that time, I will not pray. Others will say, no, Rasulullah said the hadith. So what is the strongest opinion? There is no strong opinion.
Yeah, as I said, I haven't. No one is able to show you some.
So you go back to the madhab that you are following. What does it say? So the Maliki and the Hanafi madhab hold that after Asr, you do not pray any nafil, including Tahiyyatul Masjid, until you pray Maghrib. Okay. The Shafi'is and Hanbalis have permitted it. Simple.
I'm not like insisting that I'm right or right.
Yeah, I understand.
Continue.
Yeah.
So when I searched on these websites
yeah, you've searched and you've searched, and that the person that you've searched and you've read is following a madhab.
Yeah.
So he's giving you the reasoning of his understanding. So you don't. It's not that fine. You've searched it and you've applied that, but that doesn't make it the strongest opinion.
Yeah, but people when they write something in a website, on internet, so they should for sure they should have some knowledge, They cannot.
You don't know that for certain.
You try like different websites.
I understand that, my brother, and this is why I'm saying this is the danger, is that you are not qualified to know that the answer that is provided is, number one, the correct answer. What is the evidence that is provided? What is the hadith that is provided? You can't go back to the book of hadith. You just have to take that person's word for it. And you don't know that person. They've just something written on the website that Google actually gave you. It's not even that person. It's Google. You've searched on Google and it said to you, oh, this is the closest to your question. So this is where it's danger.
Yeah, if there is something that is very like there is no other example. For example, in this case, if there was no school of thought was having
No, if it's permissible, if you've taken that view, there's no harm. It's not like you've committed a haram. Even if it's, let's say for example, I am following the Hanafi school, but I still act on this, no problem. No problem.
It says there that a few salahs, regardless of what, if it's a makruh time or not, like one of them, they say, according to hadith, they say, I'm just again, clarifying with you.
So this is the thing. It's not according to hadith. It's according to their understanding of hadith. Do you understand? The people, they have their understanding of hadith, and somebody else has understood that same hadith differently. So they'll say to you according to the hadith. Understand? But that is not. But yeah, they say Tahiyyatul Masjid, Tahiyyatul Wudu. pray.
No, don't stop anyone coming to, the house of Allah when they come to pray, regardless of the time. So they give that example, like, so that means that any salah. This salah. So there are some prayers like including Tahiyyat al-Masjid can be prayed even if it's makruh, and because they say because in tawaf, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he didn't give permission to stop if anyone comes and pray.
That is, again, I am saying to you that is their reasoning.
Okay.
That person's understanding.
I didn't know that in Maliki also is. I thought only Hanafis.
No.
Because there are things you've heard, but you're not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But it can be because
Yeah.
when you hear things and you pass on message verbally, it cannot reach the exact message even to the third person. So I was just like.
But I will say to you one thing. Imam Abu Hanifa is number one of the greatest scholars and one of the senior scholars of fiqh. Right? Imam Ahmad studied from Imam al-Shafi'i and the student of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam al-Shafi'i studied from Malik and the student of Imam Abu Hanifa. And they used to say that all people are children in front of Abu Hanifa in fiqh. And the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa is probably one of the only madhab that is well written and has a lot of information in comparison to the other madhab, because it's the oldest and it expanded in certain parts of the world where there were a lot of ulama and so on. So you should not feel lose confidence in what you are following just because you are now in a place where maybe some people are Hanafi, some people Hanbali, some people are this, and they point and they say, oh yeah, this in your madhab goes against Sunnah, this in your madhab goes against Sunnah, and so yeah, that's it.
But as long as there are things like really there is a text, there is something written really about.
Yeah, but if you want to be fair, then you go and look at the other opinion and look at their reasoning. Do you understand? You have to look at the reasoning for those who say you can pray, and then look at the reasoning of those who say you can't pray, and then you assess which is stronger. Yeah?
Yeah. So I remember asking this question a long time ago,
Mm.
and then many years later I heard other people in the masjid also asking about the same question. Not here, but in my home country in Kenya.
Okay, yes.
And there was a very educated scholar or a very educated learned man there, and he said that you are not necessarily doing something wrong because of the different levels of understanding and the different imams, but maybe indirectly or directly Allah is also asking you to come into the masjid and to pray the Quran, to read the Quran, to recite adhkar or tasbih and everything. Sit just on your own and pray. You don't necessarily have to pray salah only. There are so many other things that
Acts
you
of
can
worship,
do
yeah.
to ponder and to reflect and to engage yourself in other kinds of dhikr and tasbih and everything. So do that also. You are not doing anything wrong by not praying at that time, because your understanding is limited. And the people who have the knowledge are also asking you or suggesting to you to follow doing something. So trust in them, because they have also been given that knowledge by Allah. So you trust in them and you do something, and then when the right convenient time is there for you to pray, pray.
So this is the view of the opposing side, is that they say when you have makruh time, the makruh time is there for two reasons. Number one, this is the time where sun worshippers will worship the sun.
But
Yeah?
this is the time of tulu and ghurub. Sunrise and
Coming to it. So this is one reason. The second reason is that Allah stops you from doing particular acts of worship in particular time. For example, you can't fast on the day of Eid. You want to fast, but Allah says no, you can't. Likewise, He says you can't pray,
Like even on Eid,
so that you engage in other acts of worship. So now you can't. I've come, I want to worship. It's after Asr. I've prayed my Asr. Now I am compelled to do Quran and dhikr and dua. Why? Because I can't pray. Do you understand? And so trust in the information that you have, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. And so when you've asked, whether you've asked with the question or you've searched, and you are confident that you found the answer, then act on it and Allah will not hold you responsible. But don't make it a point of debating with somebody. This is what I found, this is what I understand, this is what I'm going to do. Alhamdulillah. You found something else, you've understood something else, you received another answer. There is no one way. There's no one way. Right? It's multiple, there are variants.
That's what I'm saying. But like, that's what I'm saying. I'm asking you something and I'm convinced with your answer. Then I'm just practicing it. Even though it's not Hanafi, let's say. That was my question actually. Like.
Yeah, but there is a way of questioning. I've just told you, when you question, you let the person know that generally I follow this school of thought. What should I do? And then they will give you the right answer. Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes it's like you giving, for example, Juma khutbahs. For just an example, or like.
Yeah, generally we don't. This is the thing. Whenever.
There's nothing.
No. Generally, scholars will generally mention that there is a difference of opinion, and this is the opinion that I apply, and this is the opinion of Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik. I am following the Maliki school, for example. Generally, they will let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say that my intention was not to debate. You know?
No. It's to understand.
Just, a couple of cross questions or answers. I gave my opinion, but just to
Yeah, and you're entitled to it. You are entitled to it, but my personal advice is, unless a person is equipped with understanding, like for example, you read the answer. I search on Google, right? So when I search on Google and I look at the names of the scholars and the books that are provided, not all of them, but I will know a good number of those scholars and those books, and so I know to go back and to understand, right? Somebody else doesn't know. They're just following whatever that person is saying, and so you can't take that for evidence.
I mean, there are certain things, they mentioned that, like, according to Hanafi school of thought, this topic,
Yeah, this is the ruling. This is the ruling.
But in this particular, the only thing that I am a bit like now doing against the Hanafi, what my school of thought, I'm against Hanafi, is that because I didn't find anything that
And there is no problem with that. Where you have to be careful is when your madhab says something is haram,
of course,
then it's a big problem. Yeah. So when it tells you something is an obligation, maybe another madhab does not consider it obligation, but your madhab says it's obligation, you can't move from that. Or it tells you something is haram, you can't move, because the whole point of following a school of thought and not leaving it to you, me, him, her, to decide, is that we're just going to start following our desire.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so we can't leave it to that.
Some sheikhs also says, like he said, before the Mazhab came, beforehand, like.
Madhahib were around from the time of Tabi'een, brother.
They used to follow the.
No, madhahib were around from the time of Tabi'een, actually even from the time of Sahaba. They were already following a certain pattern. People would always ask one Sahabi and follow that, because they were available to them. Like the people of Kufa and these areas, they were going according to the school of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu arda. The people of Hijaz, they followed their main scholars. So although they were not the four schools, but people already had a methodology they were following. These four schools did not just spring up. They just brought to the surface the different understandings and practices that were being followed. Yes?
Blacks out quite often. Could be all over, but in this country, some people have deficiencies and chemical imbalances, especially women. Just want to know, is there a sin, major sin? Obviously, they try to continue with the fast and they find 10, 20 minutes later, it's thin. Can they break the fast with some water, try to kind of thing,
Yep.
and continue, or
No. Once so a person has reached a level where they're going to become unconscious, if they take something, then they don't continue the fast. They make up the fast that day. So they will eat and drink during that day, and then they will make it up after Ramadan.
And is that it? Just make it up?
No, because they are excused for a physical reason, health reason.
The only recompense is to make that fast up.
Yeah. But if a person was to become unconscious during, they started fasting and then they became unconscious for 1, 3, 5, 6 hours, and then they woke up, their fast is valid. Yeah. But if they've had to take something or they were given something that nourishes the body, then they will just make up the fast, and there is no expiation on them because it was for a valid health reason. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanallah.